The Joe Rogan Experience.
When was the creation of amphetamines? And when did it start getting utilized by military and by people like Hitler?
Well, there's like a rumor going on that it started at the Olympic Games in Berlin 1936 because an Afro-American athlete named Jesse Owens was running faster than the white Aryan German superheroes, jumping further and winning, I think, 5 gold medals. The rumor was he must be on something. Similar kind of to Anslinger, like the jazz people. They're only so good because they're on something, you know?
Right.
So there was like, was he on Benzedrine? Because Benzedrine was an American product that was already available. And it's basically speed. And there were no doping checks at these Olympics. I think they were the last Olympic Games without doping checks.
Really?
Know? Yeah. So you could basically take everything. But it's never, no one knows if Jesse Owens, he was just good, you know?
Right.
So, but there was a guy called Theodor Temmler who was the head of the Temmler factory. And he said to his chemist Fritz Hauschild after the Olympic Games, we have to create a better amphetamine, like a better than the American amphetamine. This can never happen again. That like an Afro-American is faster than the white guys, you know. So and then Hauschild was the chemist's name. He did research about amphetamines, and he found that in Japan, a chemist called Nagai in 1917, quite a while ago actually. This was in 1936, so already 19 years earlier, a Japanese chemist had made methamphetamine, and methamphetamine is stronger than amphetamine. So Hauschild thought, I'm going to make a new methamphetamine. So he found a new way of synthesizing meth. You know, there's different ways you can make meth, I guess, and he found a specific way that this Temmler company then patented. The patent was issued in Berlin in October 1937, and then they put it on the market in 1938. Methamphetamine became available. No one said it was like a drug or anything. It was just a new medicine. You didn't even need a prescription. You could just, like a child could go into a pharmacy and say, I want 10 packages of methamphetamine, and It was cheap also, and you got it. It was branded as Pervitin. Pervitin, we say in German.
There it is.
There's Pervitin. And Pervitin then became very, fashionable.
Look how innocuous that little container looks. Who would imagine that's how they sell meth? Nuts.
I think this could already be, and I'm going to get to this in a second, for the military. But first, it was a drug that was just on the market in the civil society. There was no war yet in 1938. 1938 was actually kind of the height of the Hitler regime. Like, people loved him. There was full employment. I mean, there was oppression against the Jews, but if you were like a National Socialist, you thought that was good, basically. So the problem was, there were many problems, but the reality was that it was like a steam engine. Like, the society was really working. Everyone had a job. Everyone was taking part. So that also it was basically a modern capitalist society. That also created a lot of stress. You also always have to compete. Like, you have to go from meeting to meeting. Like, the German economy was booming. So people loved meth. There was no coffee available because Germany didn't have like colonies like France where they couldn't bring in coffee. I don't even know if there was coffee. Probably you could get it maybe somewhere, but it was not a normal thing to like go into a cafe in the morning and have a coffee. So this methamphetamine became very popular. Like, workers used it in the factories. They could increase their output, and party people used it because it was also it boosted your ego. So it was you go into a meeting, an important meeting, you take a bit of meth before. So it wasn't stigmatized. It was they called it performance enhancing substance. So that's a neutral term. They made studies at universities showing that. That is actually good against anything, also against depression, and it would increase your sexual drive. And it was like people thought this is the greatest thing. Basically, there was no studies being done yet on addiction, which obviously is a problem of meth. But also we have to understand that this meth that Temmler produced, is not the crystal meth that's being produced in a trailer somewhere, in a southern state or so. I don't know. It's a different. It was made by a pharmaceutical company. The way I found out about Pervitin was actually a funny story, because I didn't know anything about. No one knew anything about Nazis and drugs, as I said before. Like in 2010, I'm asking a friend of mine who's a DJ in Berlin. Alex is his name. I said to him, what should I write about next? What should my next book be? Because I'd written 3 novels, and I was about to write the 4th novel, and he said, you should write about Nazis and drugs. I said, well, but they didn't take any drugs, and he said, they did. And I said, how do you know? No one's ever talked about this before. And he said, well, yesterday I received Pervitin, which I said, what is Pervitin? He said, well, it's methamphetamine from the Third Reich. Third Reich being a propaganda term by the Nazis. That's why I like to say the so-called Third Reich. How did this happen? He had a friend who was an antique dealer, and in 2010, this antique dealer in East Berlin had purchased, like in an apartment where people died. Then the antique dealers come in and they take furniture, they pay maybe a little. He bought a medicine chest, and he opened the medicine chest, and there was Pervitin inside from the 1940s. And that antique dealer, who was a friend of Alex the DJ, he looked at it and it said on the package, contains methamphetamine. He's like, what? So he took it with his partner. They were curious, And I later met this guy, and he said for 1 month we took this Pervitin, and it was like so great. He said it was not too strong. It made us happy. We were very active. We worked a lot. We had great sex. It was like great. And then Alex, the DJ, being very interested in all kinds of drugs, he also took it. And he told me this in my writing tower in Berlin. He said, after the first Pervitin, I could feel that something's coming on, that there was like increased energy level. And then I took another one. And these are pills which were like 70 years old, and they were still working. And then I took a third one, and my writing tower was right at the river in Berlin, and there was like a big ship passing by, and he said, and I felt like this ship when the big engine is turned on, and the Schub, like the push of the engine, like moving the whole big ship forward. That's how I felt after 3 tablets. I said, this is insane, And I Googled it, and there was like just a little on the internet. There was one medicine historian who had like totally unknown guy, but I mean a researcher who had written like a 2-page thing that the German Blitzkrieg, which is the German word for speed war, like the Nazis' strategy, how to lead a war, was only possible because of methamphetamine, because of this Pervitin. And I read this and I said, this is crazy. Maybe I should write about this. And I contacted, so it's a very odd story how this came about, and I contacted this academic. He was at the University of Ulm. I traveled down there. I met him, and he said, yeah, there's actually a lot more to find, but I just didn't have the time because he's investigating all kinds of things. This was just a side project of his. And he gave me the signatures in archives. You get a signature. Every document has a signature. And he gave me like the signatures where I can find like all the documents on meth during Nazi times. This was in the military archive of Germany, which is housed in Freiburg in southern Germany. Germany is a decentralized country, so not all the archives are in Berlin. For example, the military archive is in this small town called Freiburg. The military archive is almost bigger than the town, because the German military has done so much shit, in the first, we lost 2 world wars. I mean, that's world record for sure. So, and everything that the German armies did is, documented, because the Germans love to document, like everything is written down. So the military archive is huge. And because I had the signatures from this guy, he basically did the legwork for me. I could look at all the files, and then I realized that the German army was using methamphetamine. And it's another interesting story how that came about, because a professor called Ranke, he was the head of the Institute for Defense Physiology of the German army. And basically his job was to enhance the fighting capability of the soldier. So he was researching in 1938, how can we combat fatigue? Because he said, not the Russians are our biggest enemy, not the British, not even the French, our biggest enemy is fatigue, because you get tired in the evening. You fight the whole day and then you need to sleep. What a waste, you know. That's not good. He was looking for a way to beat this enemy, sleep. And then when Pervitin came onto the market, he started reading studies done by universities, and they very clearly show that on meth, and I think this is an experience that people who have used meth probably would sign, you know, you don't sleep as much. You know, it keeps you awake because all your dopamine is released. So your brain is basically in a fight or flight mode. Like your methamphetamine makes you extremely alert over a very long period of time. And then at one point, obviously, you drop down and you get the urge to take it again. This is how the addiction works. But he was not, you know, looking at addiction problems. He was just looking at, does it really work to keep a soldier awake maybe for 2 hours longer on the battlefield? Because there's this saying from Napoleonic times, the last 15 minutes in a battle, that's the decisive 15 minutes. Like who wins in the end wins, you know?
Right.
So if you have something that keeps your men awake for longer than the enemy has, then you have a decisive advantage. So he made tests. I don't know. I have like there's photos of it in my book Blitzed, where you see like the young medical officers. Like he was working in a institution that was breeding medical officers for the German army. So he gave these young guys placebo, methamphetamine, coffee, just to check and like can they sustain longer on meth, and they could. They could actually, they were more active. Like these tests started at 8 p.m. and went until 10 a.m. And the meth people, like, they were awake the whole night. You know, they were filling out, you know, he had tests, like you had to draw things or repeat orders or like solve mathematical questions. And the meth people were like going at it until 10 a.m. And then some said, and now we want to go out. Like now, then they wanted to party. While the caffeine people, I don't know if we can see that image. It's kind of funny. Can you pull that up?
Yeah, I'm not sure which image it is.
Like the
Your mic's on, Jamie.
Just not sure which one it is. I'm looking at. It's a lot of images and they're all in
yeah, this one.
So these guys are all methed up.
Well, you see, like going up, maybe. You see, like the S, you know, sleeping there.
Mm-hmm.
That's S means Scheintablette, which is placebo. To the left of him is a Pervitin guy. He's quite happy. To the right of him is a Benzedrine guy. That's the B.
And that's another stimulant.
That's the American stimulant, which is not as potent as methamphetamine. I mean, methamphetamine is more potent than amphetamine. It's like a difference between like a Mercedes and a bicycle or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is a C?
C is coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, there's a few more images where you like. This is like taken at 4:15 in the morning. This is taken at 5:50 in the morning. Yeah, go back maybe to the 4:15.
That guy's head's moved.
Well, I mean,
Here
here we see photos. I mean, then he obviously looked at the results of, you know, the people filling out. And there's more pictures later in the day when like the S person is like yawning. Well, you see in front of him the Pervitin person, like he's not yawning. He's like ready.
Yeah.
He's ready for the next questionnaire. You know, he can't sleep for like another
But the
day.
guy in the back though, that's a P. His head is down.
I think
see him the far right.
I think he's solving a.
Yeah, he might be studying things.
Well, in any case, maybe go one picture down. Yeah, that one. That's how the test like he did. So he saw that with if you take 2 times 0.6 milligrams of Pervitin on the right there, that black bar, they don't show any fatigue at all. He basically came to the conclusion it does work. It does keep you awake. And he also found out something which is I think is kind of funny. He found out that on meth you are less capable of solving higher complex questions. So meth keeps you up, but it makes you a little bit dumber. Oh. Like things that are really that demand like very abstract thinking, or you know more complex things. You're not better on meth.
Is it because meth sort of rushes you to come to a conclusion?
Yeah, and also you feel too good about yourself, so that self-criticism is lowered.
Right.
And he concluded that this is perfect for the German soldier. It makes you awake longer and makes you a little bit more stupid. Because a soldier just needs to follow orders.
Right.
He just needs to shoot for a long time, you know.
Right.